So the next few books I read all fairly quickly. Thought I saw a bug. I all read fairly quickly because I actually started reading on my Kindle, and it's a lot easier to read, a lot more, when your book is like this big and fits in your purse. So they don't have as long of synopses and opinions and all that. Also, I'm just gonna read them. I'm just gonna read it. Okay. Disney War. Here she is. Disney War. This took about 1 million years to read because it's fairly thick and it's a nonfiction book, so it's a little more dense, but I legitimately enjoyed it. If you didn't already have an interest in Disney history, and especially with the late 80s through the early aughts, then you wouldn't necessarily enjoy it. However, I am a huge Disney nerd, and I found it all rather fascinating. So it's about Michael Eisner and his coming into power of the Disney company. And by hiring creative people around him, he was able to move Disney toward the monolith that it is today. However, he became more or less obsessed with this power and ignored all the signs that things might be going wrong. Since he was in charge when Disney was making banger after banger and major money during the 90s, then when things started to go downhill after that, it was other people's fault. Like, I'm not a therapist or psychologist or anything related to the sciences, and so like I can't psychoanalyze him, and even if I were a psychologist, you're not supposed to do that for people you're not actively treating, or maybe you can, I don't know, I'm talking out of my butt here, because he had this success early on, and then there was that long period of success, and then a sudden change and everything started going downhill. He began blaming everyone around him. And he refused to admit any sort of shortcomings that he had in his own leadership. Like, people theorize that, you know, in Shrek, Farquaad kind of looks like Michael Eisner. Having now read the book and knowing how he screwed over Katzenberg, 100%, he is meant to look like Michael Eisner. And for people who don't know, Jeffrey Katzenberg was in charge of I believe the animation department of Disney during the 90s. And in his contract, he was entitled to a certain percentage of the royalties of any project he was working on, which I don't know how encompassing that means, but that means he was entitled to royalties of Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Pocahontas, the bangers, and so that includes like VHS sales, any sort of merchandising. When Beauty and the Beast went to Broadway, how much of that does he get? And then when things started to go downhill a little bit, Michael Eisner just kind of cut him off, and Katzenberg was like, "Where's my money?" And Michael Eisner was like, "What money?" And Katzenberg was like, the money that I'm owed from my royalties, plus like something in my contract about being let go early, I get a certain amount of money then as well. And Eisner was like, oh well. Katzenberg kept giving him crap about that, and eventually it went to court, and it came out that Michael Eisner like told someone or said in an email that like he's never getting his money. I know he gets money, he deserves money, I'm just not giving it to him. And yeah. And part of the reason why 2D animation became so expensive is relatively, the word escapes me, but not real. It's artificial. Because Jeffrey Katzenberg was like, screw Disney, screw Eisner, I'm going to go make my own animation company. They took a bunch of the 2D animators, and Disney was like, ugh. And so they started paying them more to keep them at Disney. So like the animators 100% deserve the money that they get, but they started giving them more in order to keep them. Anyway, next, Walk Two Moons. This is a book Darius read forever ago as a kid, and we got it, and he's like, you have to read this, it's so good. And I'm like, okay. And it sat on my shelf for like 8 years. A young woman is traveling cross country with her grandparents after the death of her mother in order to gain closure. On the way, she tells them the story of a friend of hers whose own mother also disappeared and their attempts to find her. The way the story was written was was very well done in that it honestly felt like it was coming from the eyes of a young teenager. Like the way that they talk and how they focus on seemingly inconsequential things when other important things seem to pass them by. The way the grandparents spoke to one another was adorable and really felt like an old married couple. And then when the grandmother ended up dying of a stroke while on the trip, you really felt the grandfather's loss and sadness. At one point, she talks about how her English teacher read aloud portions of their journals in class, and as someone who did journal all the way through middle and high school and everything, I would want to set myself on fire. I can't even imagine.
Hi friends. Apologies for the weird crop. I'm holding the baby, so I don't want to show her face because that's my prerogative. And I'm editing, and I was like, I should read one of my old journals. And I remembered one of my journals was like super cringe, and I remembered it was this blue one. And so I'm going back through it. Anyway, I'm going to tell insert name here via note that I still like him. I'm not going to tell him that I love him. That might be awkward for him. I want to see his reaction. This is a couple minutes later. Name is writing a response to something I said within the note. The note's back. While passing notes, Name asked in the note if he could read this journal. I was like, no, 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 no. I told Name that I still liked him in the note. He said that person A, person B, and me, well, and I, all liked him. He said he felt weird having so many girls with crushes on him. I said, I wish boys liked me. Sad face. He changed the subject. You freaking dunked on.
Flowers for Algernon. Bam. I read this book ages ago in like high school, I think. Yeah. A man with mental retardation is working with a couple of doctors on a new experiment to increase IQ. Told through handwritten progress reports by the man, you're able to see progress in his spelling, grammar, and word choice. At his peak, he is able to give doctors critiques on their own experiments, but he finds himself unable to find joy in interacting with the people in his everyday life. He's fired from his job after his coworkers are disturbed by his rapid change, not knowing about the experiment because it's a new experiment and he wasn't allowed to tell anyone. He goes from writing and spelling like that, kind of. Hello? Can you see? Like no punctuation, a bunch of spelling errors. Yeah, like super eloquent, super like big words. His coworkers were like super upset and confused. They're like, why has this guy suddenly changed? We don't feel comfortable working around him, and he gets fired. Which, when was this book written? 1959. I feel like labor laws existed back then. He probably could have sued. His romantic life falls apart after his date is unable to understand or connect with his own intelligence. However, the effects quickly disappear and he finds himself unable to read books he enjoyed before, speak languages he'd just learned, or even understand his own previous writings. His frustrations grow until he was back to how he was before, even losing the memory of all he was capable of from the experiment. The timeline is just under 6 months from his first experiment to his return to previous intelligence level. It's almost kind of sad because he was able to see how he was living and how the people he considered friends really thought about him, but he seemed to then lose it all and return to how he lived before. It almost feels like, what's the point, you know?
Hi friends, new outfit, same me. It was at this time that for whatever reason my camera had stopped recording, so lucky me, I get to re-record stuff. Yeah, okay, bye.